Now to the star of the show, of a guy I've known for a long time. I worked with him at the sheriff's department 20 years ago. It's been a long time. Both of us were different people back then, and I spent 2 hours with this guy yesterday. I could have spent 5 hours with him yesterday if I had the time and he had the time. He basically had to kick me out of PAACA yesterday. With no further ado, Jamie Casey, how are you, buddy?
How you doing, Chris?
Jamie, yesterday we went over a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
Like I said, gosh, I can touch upon 100 things that I want to, but we don't have that time. But we're going to keep going until we get most of it out tonight.
Okay.
Jamie, let's start off with an introduction of yourself to those who don't know you, which I don't think there are many viewers right now that don't know who you are.
That's because all my friends are on here watching this. So yeah, I'm Jamie Casey. I been born and raised in New Bedford. I grew up in the North End, New Bedford Public Schools. My story is nothing spectacular. It's definitely one of hope, obviously, if you're caught up in the things that I got caught up with. I grew up, middle-class family, suburbs, and, my family wasn't perfect, like most. My parents split when I was 10, and, I think lost kid, I was seeking sort of something more. Or some sanctuary, I guess, maybe from some of the hurt or whatever. Whatever the reason. I turned to drugs. I was about 12 years old the first time I started experimenting. By the time I was 14, I was drinking, 15 and 16, harder drugs, selling drugs, the whole nine. And I just kind of ran amok most of my teens and young adult life, and didn't realize what I was getting myself into. It was just all about having fun, the party life, so on and so forth. And as everyone knows, the party ends. Typically when the party ends, most people go home. I stuck around. By the time I was 25, I had a stepson and two beautiful little girls. I had realized at that point that I had a major problem, that there was something wrong with my incessant need and obsession with drugs and alcohol, and I couldn't function without them, So it was kind of my escape at the beginning, and then it became a habit, and then it just became a way of life, and it owned me, They say in the first step, I was powerless over this thing at that point. And I definitely realized that. I knew that, I needed help. And I had, for years sort of searched for answers and for the freedom, that I needed. And I went through various inpatient and outpatient programs throughout, the South Coast. Counselors, my poor counselors, God. Some of them are actually still working. I'm pretty impressed.
I'm sure you learned a lot from them. So you say you're poor counselors, but I'm sure you're using the tools they gave you then.
Sure. I actually, I still am very good friends with one, not two. And, it was tough. I mean, I was not exactly willing to do what needed to be done. And so, again, I failed miserably in all these attempts, medications, psychiatrists, psychologists and whatever. And, I just kept getting worse and worse, it was an overdose in 99. I mean, I've had, a bunch of things happen.
Let's just, sorry to interrupt, but let's get back to, because this is something that I really want to talk about after that, really, because we started this all off last week, was the mental illness thing. You were diagnosed.
Yeah, I had multiple diagnoses. I mean, I think they were just trying to figure out what was wrong with me, to be honest with you. Depression, bipolar. I had severe anxiety and panic disorder. Multiple prescriptions. The thing is when you're using drugs and alcohol to the extent that I was, there's no way that your brain chemistry is right, and obviously all the side effects of that would definitely mimic or replicate these types of mental illnesses. So, I mean, it's just the same. You suffer from them, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I was like self-destructive,
Absolutely.
Yeah, self-inflicted. So yeah, I mean, I went through that and battled that. So it's almost like this vicious cycle where you're self-medicating because the medications aren't working because you're self-medicating.
Yeah.
You just can't get off that wheel. So, yeah, I mean, I actually, one thing that I'd done in that process was I had run into an old friend who I knew was kind of had lived a life like I had, but last I'd heard he had gone to prison, and and didn't hear from him for years, and I just figured, oh well, he fell off the face of the earth, and bumped into him again right around the age of 25, and he was in the church, and it was like a completely different person, and I was kind of like, what happened to you, buddy? And it was refreshing. He had this like sense of freedom and peace and contentment and joy, and he liked to hug a lot. That was the thing, from handshakes to deep, meaningful hugs.
What's this guy's name?
Matt Bedeiros. He still does it.
Yeah.
And he's a hugger, and he's a good man. But he and I hooked up, and he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes, explained, what he had found through faith. And, at the same time, I mean, I was hungry for it. There was a time where I thought I was an atheist and then sort of agnostic, but I was just searching and seeking, and that was my own worst enemy, if anything. I was just trying to be king of my own kingdom. That's what I always say, But he really explained and broke it down to me and helped me answer some questions and, things like dinosaurs and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, the common arguments.
Yeah, but anyway, so I feel bad because he's another one that I ran, ragged for about 10, 11 years, in and out of the church, in and out of treatment, battling addictions and other stuff, other crises. I was married with children, and they got dragged through it as well. It was just ugly. Addiction is a family disease. It affects everybody. I use the term lightly, as you know, but the idea is that it definitely is an affliction that hurts a lot of people, not just the addict. And so I finally, right around March of 2009, after years of failures and fumbles, right, I ended up losing everything, and it was right around March. I remember my ex-wife had enough, and God bless her for putting up with me for as long as she did. She's a good woman and great mom, but enough is enough, and that was it. I kind of realized at that point that I had destroyed pretty much everything. I had. Yeah, it was ugly, and rather than own it and take responsibility, I sort of self-destructed. I went on my worst run ever for about 5 months straight, and I mean, literally was just destroying myself. And then by about August of 2009, my mother, my brother, and a couple of best friends of mine, Brian Doobie and Mike Turgeon, who's a state trooper now, and Brian's my pastor. Another crazy story for another time. You'll have to get him on this show to explain that story.
Absolutely.
He's awesome. But yeah, we, they sat me down, and they didn't realize that I was ready. I was just up in my mother's room. It was my birthday. I was 36 years old that day, and realized what I had done and what I had lost, and was just ready to sort of do something, really finally do something, not this in and out stuff and halfway in.
By do something, let the viewers know what do something was.
So I was,
You told me that you almost took your own life.
2 weeks prior to that, I had just come off of a pretty bad bender. I was really, really down, and my mother was out of town, and I just said, maybe I'm just better off. Really, everybody's better off without me in this world, and so you get to that place, especially after a drug bender, that you're
coming down,
you're a mess, and depression and everything else, and so I had kind of made this decision, and then in the midst of that, I sort of like kind of snapped out of it and said, "The heck are you doing, man? You're not created for this." And I honestly say to this day, that was probably my most honest prayer, even to this day, like most raw and real. I mean, I first cursed God, and then I begged him, for my life. And I said, God, whatever you do, just help me, save me, because I can't save myself. And I fell asleep on my mother's living room floor that night. I remember that, crying myself to sleep and just, begging God for a second chance at life. I just lost everything, man, and I was just so, like, people talk about rock bottom. I had bounced off of rock bottom for years. I don't know that was, it was just the time. I think the stars aligned, man. You're just ready. And 2 weeks to the day was my birthday, and they approached me, sat me down, and I'd come downstairs, and I was like, I was just researching treatment centers, And I was looking in Florida and California.
He came to give you the gift of an intervention.
Yeah, I couldn't get in any place. They didn't either take my insurance, there was no beds, and I had only tried like a few, and I was kind of just like really not sure what to do. And I come downstairs, and there they are, and I'm like, oh, I've seen this TV show before. And
it was a good birthday present.
yeah, it was. It was the best birthday, worse than best day of my life. You know, I mean, I honestly, you know, I don't know. You know Mike. Mike's a big guy, you know, 6'2", state trooper.
I ran into him the other day. He's still in pretty good shape, too.
Yeah, he's a great man. Mike and I go back to 5 years old.
That's awesome.
He's seen me through it all. Guys, you know, that 99 when I OD'd, he carried me into the emergency room like a child. And he sat with me for 26 hours straight. When I came out in ICU, he was right there beside me. That's who Mike is. That's the substance of a true friend. And so anyways, yeah, he stood up and tried to read a letter to me. And to see Mike break down like that in tears was really tough for me to watch because we've been through a lot.
And he's a strong man.
He is.
For a guy, to get a guy that broken, you know what I mean? You know it means something.
Yeah. And then they handed me letters from my daughters, and that was tough. A letter from my sister in Florida, and I'm just reading, and I'm kind of quiet. I wasn't really arguing. I think they sat Mike right next to me because I used to be a firecracker when I was, little man syndrome, right? But Brian sat way across the room. I had beat Brian up too many times. So
he had enough.
Yeah, poor guy. But I kind of at that point I was already defeated and broken and ready, and so I said, well, what's the deal? What do you want me to do? And Brian had said, I got a Bedford Teen Challenge, and I said, oh boy, Teen Challenge, because Brian is a graduate and he had gone through a couple of years prior, and he was a pastor now, and I was like, it was undeniable. He had that piece that Matt Medeiros had 11 years prior when I bumped into Matt. He had that same look. He had that same sort of countenance, where I was just like, just such a contentment in this guy now. And he was so radically different. If you knew Brian prior to Teen Challenge, you understand what I mean. Brian was, he was a heavy drinker.
He was an animal.
Oh yeah, OC addict. I mean, the guy was nuts. And, lovable guy always. But boy, could he get annihilated. And to see him now, I was just in awe, and I couldn't deny that, and I saw it up close, and we were, his sister's married to my brother. And
so you saw it work, you saw the works.
Yeah, so, it was powerful to me, that sort of symbol of hope and that illustration of it. And so I said, you know what, I'll do it. I was not getting any luck, and I kind of looked down at the floor where I had prayed 2 weeks prior. And I remember, I'm sorry.
Man, do you, bro.
So I remember, thinking, whatever you do, God, whatever door you open, I'll take that.
I'll walk right through it.
I realized that here he was sending a man of God to open the door for me.
Awesome.
And so Brian was that door. And my brother, obviously my mother, and Mike had a big part in that as well. My girls, no question. A lot of people, even my ex. I mean, I thank her for finally letting me
we
go.
Talked yesterday, and you brought her up a couple of times how you ran her through the ground, and you still spoke highly of her. Even
she's a good person. She really is. And so I went and I surrendered myself to this process and to God. And for somebody who was pretty analytical and self-righteous, stubborn, prideful, arrogant. I still struggle with those things, but
we all do.
At the end of the day, it was a refreshing sort of freeing feeling to just sort of surrender to something greater than me. And a couple of weeks in, I just had this amazing sort of revelation or understanding of who God was and who I was, and how grateful I was to just have this opportunity to change and another chance at life.
So this is a few weeks into Teen Challenge.
Yeah, and I was planning on leaving at 30 days. That was my deal,
As Jay McMahon just finished saying, 30 days is not nearly enough.
No, 30 days I had started changing. That was the beginning of the change. I sort of was still figuring out the nuts and bolts, and you were just kind of hitting some strides, and then I called home. It was my first phone call because they don't let you talk to your family for 30 days. You can only receive letters, which I think is a great policy because you're not whining every day. Yeah. You're not crying over the phone and begging people and manipulating them.
I worked in a prison, man. I see the guys doing phone bids from day one.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So it was good for me to be separated and be by myself. I had to meet myself. I had to meet God. I had to really sort out who I'd become and this character, Jamie Casey, I had created for 36 years that, sort of fit into this film of life. And, the reality is that he was just sort of this character I had designed and created to sort of survive and to be liked and to be, you know.
Hey man, I'm gonna be honest with you. You're a different man, 100%. But from our interactions, you were always good to me and always a good dude. Like, the core was there that you had the good core. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a good family.
It's just, it was like you were the M&M peanut. Like the peanut was the good, the rest of the outside chocolate was the bad, man.
Yeah.
Like, it was there.
Yeah, I meant well a lot of times. I definitely had, like, I love my kids. I had, like, it was just brokenness, man. I was just off kilter. It was like a car with 3 wheels trying to make it down the street and sparks flying everywhere, and everybody was like, oh, here comes Jamie, But, it was rough. I mean,
saw that side too.
Yeah, who didn't? If you lived in New Bedford in those years, But, what ended up happening is that 30 days, I realized something amazing was happening to me at that point, and I said,
Awesome.
if I go home right now, I'm going to mess this up and try to fight for a marriage that was dead and try to restore something that wasn't even restorable. It was irreparable at that point. I destroyed it, and I started taking full responsibility for those things in my life and realizing that I had to, that I never had really any integrity. I thought I did. I had man codes. And,
Yeah, you were solid.
Yeah, so I thought. And the reality was I never had true integrity, and I've learned that, in recovery and in life. If you want to be a mature, productive human being, aside from integrity, you need to be humble, you need to be teachable, and you need to love others, and you need to love yourself too. And I started learning all these things for the first time, and I started having these amazing moments with God and with others, and being used and to help and serve. And by about 6 months into that program, I was drastically changed already, and I could tell something was different. But when you're with yourself every day, C.S. Lewis says, day by day, nothing changes, but when you look back, nothing's the same.
Nothing's the same.
And that was sort of what was going on. And my mom, who would faithfully bring my girls up every week and work on that restoration with them, with me, and help support that. My mother, God bless her.
I got a soft spot for moms, man, as you probably saw with the Kevin Rosario thing.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what you told me yesterday when we met about when your mom first saw you there.
Well, my mother, who is a very strong woman, I have a soft spot for my mom.
As do I, trust me.
So my mom, who raised us essentially on her own, me and my brother and sister, and I was the crazy kid. My brother was nuts, but I made him look like a saint,
Yeah.
My mother was she's super intelligent, and she's, like I called Wendy when she was on your show, she's a velvet covered brick, she's strong but soft. And for years she watched me in my misery, and she watched me fail, and she watched me struggle and try, and she always encouraged, never turned her back on me. It was like, my sanctuary, and I'll never forget when she's a faithful person, my mother. She's not a church person. She had some bad experiences as a kid, and that's fine. And
faith and religion is different sometimes.
faith and religion are two totally different things.
People don't realize that.
Yeah, it's about a relationship with God, and so my mom has that. And I'll never forget, 6 months in, she came in, and there was just, she was different. She was tearing up, and my mom's not a crier. She's not. She's tough, and but she's sensitive at the same time. And I kind of thought something really wrong was happening, like something really bad happened or something. And I can remember asking her, what's the matter? Everything all right? And she kind of looked at me, and it was like, I've waited 22 years and prayed for this to meet my son, And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh gosh, that's powerful. And it sunk my stomach, At that point, it was almost like you realize like what God's done in my life and what this hard work and this surrender.
It's like that door open, man, I'm here. I made it.
So she kind of at that point was like, if you're ready to come home. And I was like, I'm not. There's still some work to be done here. And
how far into you was that point?
That was at 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. And I stuck around, and I said, I'm going to wait until until God makes it obvious, until things get to the point where I have to leave here. And that was kind of how I handled it, day by day, and just kept pressing in and kept growing and taking advantage of what Teen Challenge offers. Teen Challenge is a very unique program. It's not just a drug rehab. It's kind of it's a discipleship program. It's a faith-based ministry that sort of, they don't allow smoking and medications and things like that. And there's a sort of take responsibility for your action kind of mentality, where you work every day, you earn your keep, and you clean up after yourself, and you learn to just live in structure and by rules. And most people who are caught up in addiction
Have lived on their own rules.
Yeah, I mean, these things aren't in place.
Yeah.
And so it's really good. But there's a lot of amazing bonds that happen in that. A lot of people and everybody that's in that place has been through that program. So they've all been a day one student, and they all understand what you're going through at all times, whether they've been there for 37 years or 37 minutes. They all have that in common. And so it was powerful. I mean, it was actually exactly what I thought. Now know actually that church should be is these relationships, that's where the power is in all of this, is that in community is where we're actually transformed. Brian and I, we use that term quite a bit, is Pastor Jackie Straudoff from Teen Challenge had sent Brian a card, and this term that she used was, you keep loving people back to life, and essentially that's what we're supposed to do. And I think that's what happened to me there, is I got loved back to life.
I try to tell people that all the time, like, I went through a point, Jamie, where, I was on that side, like, man, let them kill themselves.
Yeah.
It was irresponsible of me,
Mm-hmm.
and short-sighted of me, and I've asked for forgiveness for thinking like that, because, just, I might not have vocalized it as much, but, the good man upstairs does know what you think, too, as far as I'm concerned. Right. And I have friends that, like, have family members that just, like, let them go. Like, dude, yeah. I can't see a dog hurt, never mind.
Right.
And when an addict is out there, he's hurt.
That's right.
People don't realize that. Like, and that right there, what you just said, love them back. Like, dude, if you got family members, like, Jay brought it up, like, there's not a person that isn't affected by this. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Muslim, Christian, whatever you may be.
Yeah.
It comes and affects you, man. And it's going to, one part of addiction in this opioid crisis is going to affect you, whether something gets stolen from you, or whether somebody dies that you love, or whether you end up with the addiction, And I try to tell people that, like, there's no socioeconomic breakdown of who gets what. Like, nowadays, it's just crazy. And you do have to love everybody, and I went over scripture with you yesterday a little bit, and like how, like, your main job in life is to love, like, that's what you're here to do.
Yeah.
And people that just don't get it, just like, and like me, like, I finally saw the light, where I'm like, man, that's not how you treat things. And now that I see people that have been successful in recovery, like yourself, like a Kevin Rosario that was on.
Yeah.
He's a madman too,
Yeah.
And
it's a good man.
He had family that just kept loving him and loving him and loving him and loving him, and that's what you just do. You just don't throw away life.
That's right.
You don't throw away family.
It's sacred.
It is, man. Your time here is short because eternity's forever, and people don't realize that. But even though it's short, like, it's sacred.
Yeah, sure, it's a gift. I mean, there's no question that. I always say, and it's an old saying, but I mean, the idea is, and I on Wednesday nights, I lead a group of amazing people at the church, and one of the things I always try to reiterate and remind people is that you're not just a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. It's just temporary, but we're eternal in that sense. And so we have to really embrace that and make the most of this little ride on this spinning ball of dirt, So I mean, I guess to wrap up where I was, I ended up heading home, and when I got home,
how long was it when you went home?
It was almost a year. It was about 11 months, which to me is insane. Thinking about it now, and even that first day, I didn't think I was gonna make it through night number one. While I walked in, everybody just kept hugging me and praying over me, and I was kind of like, this is creepy, man. But it's just something powerful there, the bonds and the relationships, and it made such an impact in my life, and what an amazing ministry it is, and it's still doing great work, and they're growing, and they're making a huge impact in our community.
We're going to talk about that because Christian actually came forward yesterday with some good news.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
he's going to try. I know he is. We talked about it, and.
But yeah, so I got home, I hit the ground running. I got tied into a church. In the past, I'd always thought, okay, once you get clean, the first thing you do is you get a job, and then you get yourself healthy, and then you try to get your relationships in order, and then you whatever, and then go to the gym and all this stuff, and then maybe add some God to your life, get to church, because that's good, you know.
No.
And what I learned this time was to do the opposite, was to make God the center of my life, and then to sort of allow Him to sort of change my, my emotional and psychological status. I became very, I found that peace, I found that joy, and then in turn I got healthier physically, and then my relationships got better, and then people were actually asking me to work for them, and so jobs, begin to come, and
You said something yesterday that was amazing.
Which one?
You've never, well, you said a few things yesterday that you've never applied for a job since walking out of the...
Yeah, well, I've applied. The ones I've worked at, I didn't apply for, which is just weird. Like the way it happened was, it was almost like, my path's been mapped out for me, and that's how I look at it is, I've just stayed faithful. I've really learned to trust God. And I know that sounds foreign to a lot of people, but, He's been faithful to me. I mean, I came home with nothing. I mean, I literally was starting over from scratch. I had to move into my mother's house at 37 years old. And, it's not my proudest moment, right? But, at that time I was grateful I had a place to go.
She was grateful that you were there.
Yeah, and for her to let me in was a huge milestone, and go from there. But, it was 6 months later where I moved out, and then, I had, I didn't really want to date. I just wanted to be a good dad, and I wanted to just, continue this faith walk and just bring that hope and freedom to other people. And so I was just like a madman, just trying to get the message out to as many people as possible, and just share my story as often as possible, and say, because people remembered me. It was less than a year later. It was like, that dude was crazy.
Now, talk about going out there with the Bibles and the backpacks.
We used to pack a backpack and put bottles of water and maybe some granola bars or something like that, and just kind of stop all the way up Acushnet Avenue, North Front, under the overpasses, and just talk to whoever would listen to me, and just not like some crazy preacher, man. I would just talk about my story. I would share, that I was an addict, and that I had, battled for over 20 years with drugs and alcohol, and, all the damage that I'd done, but that I had hope now, and that I had a new life now, and what God was doing in my life, and also what community can do, and what, coming together can do, and trying to invite people in, and started a ministry through that. And, through that ministry, we ended up reaching a lot of people, and people rallied around that, and they've really supported me tremendously through all of this. And I mean, even now, I still wonder why everybody keeps supporting me, but I'm good. I mean, I'll keep running.
Man, you're inspiring, and I'll tell you that right now. You're the type of dude that'll make you want to do good stuff. There's those type of guys that will make you want to run through a wall. Yeah. You're one of them. You have that gift.
Don't do that.
No, I won't. Trust me, I'm getting old. I actually had defensive tactics yesterday. I'm an instructor for the court, and I had it yesterday. Oh, man, I woke up this morning and I can't even move.
Don't get up on my behalf. But yeah, so it was interesting. You get some crazy looks when you're on the street. And people are kind of looking at you sideways. And a lot of people still recognize me and knew me, whether it was people I'd ran with, or even sold drugs to, or that I had bar rooms that I'd hung out in, and I didn't care where I went. And that's where the ministry started, and that's where everything, we started a Celebrate Recovery group, faith-based 12 steps. Brian was really gracious. He took me under his wing, and he taught me how to lead and how to sort of, bring people together and to go through these curriculums and teach. And so that was a big help. And, in this journey, I mean, what's ended up happening is like you said, there's different seasons and different jobs. And I kept thinking, why did I end up here? Why am I working at a credit union? Why am I working in property management? And I thought, they all accommodated me at that specific season as I was going through school, as I was learning skills through these things, and they've all come back to be valuable in what I'm doing now.
Sweet.
Yeah. It was in April of this past year, of 2017, where Carl Alves of PAACA. I had met Carl over the past couple of years. We sit on the opioid task force together, I was actually their speaker, a keynote at their overdose awareness night last year. And so we knew each other, and I'm very friendly with Reverend Lima, who's another amazing guy in the community who's doing a lot of stuff. And so, I met them, and Connie Rocha Mimoso from Seven Hills and all these folks, and I started making these really great connections in the community. And I was just to be rubbing elbows with all these folks. Edwin's another one that you were talking about earlier. All these folks who were doing just great stuff around here. And Carl kind of had a conversation with me about the possibility of coming, because Brenda Souza, who had been with PAACA for 18 years, my predecessor, she did some amazing work there. You know,
It's a tough job.
Well, it is. It's rewarding. It's challenging. I love it. I mean, I love what I'm doing right now. You know, again, Carl approached me on this, and I wasn't sure what to expect. I didn't even know what PAACA did, and I'll explain that in a minute. But what really was I was in awe of was that somebody actually wanted me to come in and direct and manage to that degree. You know, I was in property management. I've managed people, and I've been in supervision, but this was on a new level because it was doing what I loved. It was my heart, you know, in my city. And I mean, I love New Bedford, man. This is my town. I took from this town. You know what I mean? For years, I was part of the problem.
You were a drain on it, and now you're filling it back up.
Yeah. So I owe this city, and I'm giving back. And so, you know, Carl just kind of sat down and mapped it out for me, and I accepted the job. I started on May 1, and the first thing I did, I went through and did a lot of analyzing and sort of some due diligence, and did a SWOT analysis and all that stuff. But I basically, looked at what we did well, what we didn't do well, what we were doing, what we weren't doing, what we should be doing, and all those things. Kind of looked at, PAACA's reputation and some of the tarnish that was on it, just from, listen, he deals with that population, it's going to happen.
Comes naturally.
Yeah, and that's the risk, and again, that's what you do. You throw yourself in front of the train. But I'll be honest. All I really knew was that they did AA and NA meetings there, and I knew that they had a housing program because it was a good friend of mine who was part of our ministry, had gone through it, and I'd seen him do amazing things through that program. So I went there, walked around with Carl, and he showed me everything, and we talked, and we met a couple of times, and I started hearing about the clothing room. I started hearing, how they do GED prep and employment readiness and placement, and how our youth services with Terry Belleville, she oversees the youth corps, and my daughter had been part of that youth corps at New Bedford Voc, and she loved it. And Pastor Jose Nieves, who is a pastor at Thy Kingdom Come, is also one of the caseworkers and part of the youth corps process. And I started hearing all these things, and I'm like, wow, this step-up housing program, we got 15 units, we got 35 clients who are chronically homeless, who are now in housing, permanent housing, who are getting their lives together with a case management.
So you're providing food, clothing, education, employment, housing.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
with youth. Yeah.
All, actually, the big thing is the youth, which you told me that you would really, really try and expand upon.
Yeah. There's a lot happening. I mean, so we, right now there's as part of the opioid task force, because everything's overlapping. We're a nonprofit, and so again,
you got to try to grab as much help as you can. Why don't you actually school quickly 30 seconds on what is the opioid task force?
So it's the Greater New Bedford Opioid Task Force, kind of birthed through Sergeant Joe Cadero and Mike Rocha, Dr. Mike Rocha, and Mike and I actually go back to Little League days. We grew up in the same neighborhood.
People don't realize Mike is everywhere.
Yeah, he is.
I told him the other day, I'm like, man, how many hours in your day? Because there's only 24 in mine.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 of him.
Yeah.
Same thing with Carl, David, Connie. They're everywhere. They're the hardest working people I know, and honestly, they're committed to this. You know what I mean? And that's what I appreciate is when you're working with people like this, and you partner with these people, you get to see that there's a passion behind all this work.
Yeah.
And I love Chief Cadero. He's such a great guy, and I love what he brings to the table, and so they started this thing. It was birthed through their sort of ideas, like, listen, we got to do something. There's a crisis here.
Yeah.
And Mike had reached out to me a couple of months prior and said, hey, I've got some ideas, and this is what they're doing at Mass General Hospital, and this is what's happening here. And he really just was like, we got to make something happen. And I love it. He can get a little overzealous and excited. That excitement, again, he gets people together.
Dude,
and he makes things happen.
Everything.
Yeah, he does. Even when he's playing the trombone. But it was great because to just be sitting at the table, I'm looking around, and it's like administrators and doctors and the chief of police and the DA's office and the school department and all these folks and
Jamie Casey.
I'm like, what am I doing here? But I always laugh and I always say, well, I'm your research monkey. You know what I mean? But I've been there, I've done that, and so whatever I can bring to the table.
What do you guys do now? That big collaborative.
So There's a lot happening. We just started a prevention thing. We're going to be going into the elementaries and the middle schools with that. We do a lot. We do the drop-in center, which the drop-in center was actually going on tonight downtown at Mercy Mills location. Those are great because Mobile Ministries comes with a truck, and so we try to get as many people help. We get a bunch of providers together on one night a month. So tonight, you have a bunch of people show up from like Clean Slate, High Point, Seven Hills, PAACA, Teen Challenge, Great New Bedford Community Health Center, Learn to Cope, all these different agencies coming together in one room and then hitting the community that's in need. And so we're trying to draw them in, block off the street, bring the Mobile Ministries truck, and then let them come in. Now, you don't necessarily have to be in a struggle at that moment, but like you said, it hits everybody. So parents will come in for help, to know what's out there, get educated, and just, get some information. Make those connections so that way when they're ready to move, then they have the resources and the help. And that's really what it is education, preparedness, and then obviously, intervention if possible and needed. So that's another great thing that we're doing right now. And then you have also the opioid task force does a ride-along thing that I've been really blessed to be part of. Man.
Yeah, I tried to get you on weeks ago, but you were too busy with that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's great. What we do is BUR actually did a really great radio show on this NPR radio. WBUR out of Boston followed us around one day, and I'll tell you, just to kind of watch the show after I would, because when you're in it, you don't really see it. To see the perspective and what's been happening and all the numbers and stuff. 'Cause I just go out and just do what I do. I mean, put me in front of somebody and I'm going to talk.
Yeah.
And there was this opportunity that came up. Edwin was actually Cartagena was the one who he was already doing the ride-alongs at that time through Seven Hills, and he had invited me. He's like, "Hey man, we're looking to get some chaplains in here. Reverend Leem is looking for people," and I thought of you, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm in."
Yeah, of course.
And so it's going on a couple of years now, and what we do is within about a week, within a few days, hopefully, and we're actually doing it more and more. It started off we were only doing a couple of days a week, and Mondays and Fridays we'd go out, and if you had overdosed that week, then a police officer, in plain clothes in an unmarked car with somebody from like Seven Hills or another local agency, High Point, someone would send a recovery coach with a chaplain. And I'm kind of a hybrid, which is great because I go as a chaplain and I also work in the field, so it's great that, I'm in recovery. And we go to these houses and we knock on their doors, so it's really... At first, I think some people are a little like, okay, not sure what to expect. You get a cop there who identifies, I'm with New Bedford Police. We're trying to not be so in your face with that. It's more like, hey, outreach team, we try to just meet people where they're at in an unthreatening way and just let them know we're here to help. We're here because we care. We want to make sure that you're okay. How can we help you? What are your needs? And then we wait and we play off of the person, so sometimes they connect with the cop more than they connect with me or the recovery coach. So we back off.
Yeah, it's a team.
And that's it, whoever's connecting with that person, that's the biggest, the biggest hope. And we were one of the first, the reason that WBUI did the story was because we were one of the first to implement the chaplains into those ride-alongs. A lot of other towns are doing the ride-alongs, but not with a chaplain, a faith community. So that was an added feature that we had, if you will, and I think that rounded us. It made us more successful, and I've seen some great things happen through there. I've helped people get into treatment. I've watched people successfully move into this process. Through that. Some of them come to our church and our group, and some come to PAACA and they volunteer now, and I'm just blown away by that.
That's the seed you planted out there.
That's what the team's doing.
So now, we talked about the functions of PAACA, but you're also starting a new program called Celebrate Recovery. Mm-hmm. It's something that's near and dear to you because it's something that saved you, basically, in many ways.
Yeah, so Celebrate Recovery is a faith-based 12-step program. We just started that group on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock at PAACA, and we've had a great turnout. We've had a great response. Again, we want to offer more at PAACA. We want to sort of hit the areas we're not, and I've seen it be so successful, and that's sort of my sweet spot, so why not offer it if I'm there as a resource,
You're the face of it. You are.
Well, we that was, like I said, Brian had kind of put me in that position, and that was what I was taught was in a Celebrate Recovery setting. So it definitely is near and dear to me, and it means a lot that I can get to do this again and again, especially in my place of employment. I mean, that's not, not too many people can say that, especially in the faith community when you're bivocational, But yeah, that's happening, and that's going really well. we're hoping to obviously plant more of those. I'm trying to raise up some leaders within that group who are capable of leading their own Celebrate
in
Recovery.
other spots.
Yeah, I just plant them all over the place, because there aren't enough 12-step recovery groups and not enough faith-based recovery groups, and so these things are proven to work because of the community. Again,
Yeah.
it goes back to loving people back to life.
Absolutely.
Relationships are key, man.
Now, one thing I want to touch upon, I noticed a lot of your staff yesterday, and were people like that are in recovery as well, and they're a lot of them were volunteers.
Yeah, sure.
And they're giving back like that. I mean, that's amazing that you staff a facility that does what you do. I mean, you're going from jobs, GED, New Directions, food pantry, transportation fleet, which blew my mind. Your transportation fleet is out and about 7 days a week, 7 a.m. and on, and that's it. And they're just going. The youth services you guys deal with the youth court. And a lot of that's staffed by volunteers who are in recovery, people giving back.
Yeah, that's right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that blesses me too. I mean, they keep me going. I'm so impressed with people who are just giving their time, for nothing more in return other than to help the next person. We have, we've been very fortunate to sort of recruit a bunch of really solid volunteers too. We have to do it with a lot of volunteers because again we're a nonprofit.
Well,
The funding, we're all chasing grants, and I always say it's like you got these grants, these pieces of cheese, and a bunch of mice trying to get to this piece of cheese, and the mice multiply, and the cheese just keeps getting eaten, and so we're trying to think outside of the box, and obviously volunteers are a start, but you gotta you gotta think of other ways to have a budget and to increase your budget and to obviously be more effective and to grow, and especially with a growing need. So we just started and I know you wanted to talk about this, so I'll just kind of go into that.
Well, we're talking about funding, and before you talk about that, I just wanted I spent 2 hours yesterday there with you, and we took about a 20-minute tour of the facility.
Yep.
I saw a good section, a very good section, and a section on the third floor that needs all kinds of money.
Yeah.
We're dealing with something that's a huge crisis in New Bedford. It's a huge black eye in New Bedford. The opioid crisis is a black eye in New Bedford.
Yeah, sure.
PAACA is like, when you think of, I'm just going to come out and say it, like how a lot of the viewers will look at it. If you think about drug addicts in New Bedford, and you're like, oh man, Route 18 at the bottom, PAACA.
Yeah.
So why aren't we throwing money at PAACA and making it a place where we can actually fix people?
Sure.
I saw a lot of the ideas you had. That second floor, what a great idea of a holding facility to get people treatment. And then the third floor, I actually drove by today. I was taking a work crew out from the correction center in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
And I said, hey man, I was there yesterday. Because someone said, oh, PAACA. And I said, and on the third floor, they're looking to do like an internet cafe for people in recovery, so they can do their homework, so they can get the internet. And they're like, wow, that's a great idea,
Yeah.
But none of this comes for free.
Yeah, I have a ton of ideas, and Carl is a patient man. He's got me bridled and a little, and he's going to keep me moving, slowing down a little bit and moving in the right directions. But yeah, I mean, I have a ton of visions for that building, a bunch of great ideas that
ideas
I need manpower for, and also we need funding for. But
you sent me an email, and it's a great fundraiser. And the point of what I was making was, it's our community. It's a bad. We're having a bad crisis right now. So why not be part of the solution?
Right. Sure.
And with everything, I tell everybody, in politics it takes money, and in recovery it takes money too.
That's right.
What is this program that you're trying to put together to raise funds to get PAACA to where it needs to be?
So what we're trying to do is again, we understand as a community that we have a problem, and as you said, it touches everybody. Addiction is a community crisis. It's a national crisis. It's a global crisis, especially with what we have going on right now. It's killing people, and so I've been trying to challenge the community to get more involved. Not everybody can do everything, but everybody can do something. So the idea is like, listen, we figured out this monthly sponsorship program where, and it's nothing new. Other places do it. Teen Challenge does it. But the idea is this is right here in New Bedford. This is a chance to sow into sort of, an organization, a grassroots organization that is literally out there at the front lines dealing with the worst of the worst situations.
Yes.
We deal with very difficult situations on a daily basis. Hundreds of intakes we have every year. We're helping people get into detox off the street. We're transporting them to detox. As you said, we have a transportation thing going on. There's a lot. We just had a great golf tournament that helped us to buy another vehicle for detox transport. But we're still way behind the 8 ball. So it's one of these things where if we can get everybody to do a little bit, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, $1,000 a month, whatever's in your budget, right? On a recurring payment plan. Now we have a budget we can start building off of. If we, a little bit at a time, and you get it all together with enough people, you can start hiring more caseworkers. You can, start doing more as far as the facility goes. I have all these crazy ideas with the building. There's also some other ideas of or a hope one day to build out on that building, or to refurbish that first floor and have a commercial kitchen, so we could do something like what Mercy Mills has been doing in the North End. And so we do have a lot of these ideas, but it becomes pipe dreams until you have some solid funding and something to build off of. So I've been challenging everybody and asking everybody, hey, please, consider partnering with us. Consider a $20 a month, or a $30 a month recurring payment, and that's going to something positive. We don't make a lot of money, so nobody's getting rich off it. Nobody's looking for a raise. We're just looking to make a bigger difference, and that's really all this is. And I can say that, like you said, you saw all the volunteers. We want to use this money as wisely as possible, and so it's a big thing. We need this right now, and really just kind of a call to action to the community. It's like, okay, you see the problem, the problem, you're affected by the problem, let's make an impact on the problem.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now you see why I set it up and cut it like this, because now next week Josh is going to cut this segment.
Yeah.
And please help PAACA, and we're going to attach your link that you sent me to it.
Yeah.
And that's it now.
Good idea.
I'm starting to learn this show stuff. I don't know how the hell I got on here. I'm still trying to still scratch my head and say, I got a show.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Speaking of money, we have a lot of politicians in the area that have access to grants, that have access to funds. We have an attorney general, as you know, we have a candidate run against them that has a budget to help programs like you.
Sure.
An outreach budget. The mayor's office now has a community budget, I think, and obviously Senator Montigny and Representative Cabral also have ways of getting money and funds to you. Have you reached out to them, and how,
I'd love to have some conversations with them at some point. As I said, I have been there for less than a year, and so right now I'm just really trying to clean up and rebrand and refurbish what we have, and clean up our image a little bit as what PAACA is, and let people know who we are. You got to brand ourselves. We got to get everybody out.
Kind of shine the sneaker at the moment.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Get in front of people and let them know what we are and what we're doing. And I don't think a lot of people know. And that's, again, thank you for allowing me to do that, because I think once people start to realize how much we are doing and how many people come through our doors every day, then they'll start to understand that there's a need, and that we provide a valuable resource to the community.
Absolutely.
And I'd love for these guys, and I know Mark Montigny. He's a good man. I've known Mark for years, and he's always been very good to me. And again, I'd love to have a conversation with him at some point and say, hey man, come see what we're doing here, and how can you help, or point us in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I know he's got a lot on his plate, and I don't envy anybody in politics, to be honest with you. It's not my cup of tea.
Well, the Route 18 plan, if you look, millions was spent on both sides of where PAACA is right now. Millions and millions of dollars. Cobblestones and exits, and here's the entrance to our fabulous North End, and here's PAACA on the left.
Yeah.
That should be part of the beautification of that area, of that district, of the city,
Sure.
And hopefully they see that vision like you do, what I mean? Because they have the power and the purse strings to make that happen, And I'm sure these guys are kind of sensible. Hopefully they still have it in them. They've been in there for a while.
Yeah.
To help out,
Sure. Yeah.
an organization like yours. I just want to go over some of the messages, Jamie. We're about coming close to an hour into our interview right now.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah.
See what happens when you get a politician and a preacher on in the same
I'm
segment.
not a politician. Oh, him, yeah. I was like, I'm not a politician, dude. I'm going to go through like the 6 million I love you, Jamies, because each one of them means something. You've probably touched their heart, and that's why they're doing this, you know. My man Corey Pina, we all know that superstar.
Yeah, it's a good man right there.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Corey and I can battle, but I'll tell you what, I can call that kid immediately, him or Kevin, if I need someone help for bed or something, they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
And their heart's in the right place,
That's right.
and the game's in the right place.
Soldiers, man.
Matt DeRoches, Melissa Quinn, these are all thank yous and I love yous and you're the best. Walter Pyers, Lynn Caterl, sorry if I butchered Caterl, yeah. Kimberly Shell, Walter Pyers again, Turgeon's awesome. Shout out to Mike Turgeon. He's my buddy too, he's a good guy, good man right there.
Yeah.
Lisa Valente, Borges Valente, God bless you. Richard Vieira, Connie Mimoso, you're an amazing person. Lance Brightman brings up a good point. About people being, very, and that's part of why I'm doing this on the show. I told you a few weeks ago that I thought the show was going to be about slaying politicians. And then once I did that domestic violence show and we helped some people, like a light just clicked.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, man, this is
help people.
This is your platform. You can have your ministry right here every Thursday by helping at least a couple people a week. And Lance hits the nail on the head about a lot. Unfortunately, people can be ignorant to the many that are struggling.
Yeah.
Keep at it, brother. And Lance is a great dude. I've known Lance for 20 years now. When I met him at the sheriff's department. He's always been a good guy. I love Lance. He's a good dude.
Lance is a good man.
Josh Smith, what's up, Jamie? Tiffany Fonseca, we are so proud of you. You might know this one. Stacy Casey, I can't say enough. I'm so proud of you, honey. Stephanie Fries, big heart. Chad Pina, Sean Fitzgerald joined in. Sean's a good dude. I know he does a lot of work with you over there.
Sean's doing a lot with us at PAACA right now. He's helped us with the golf tournament and our Thanksgiving dinner that we just did for all the homeless and the guys in the houses and men and women that are nowhere to go.
I tell everybody, man, it's good to do good and to be recognized for doing good. Some people just do good to be recognized, and some people don't like to be recognized. But I think everyone that does should get that, because even if it's what you were looking for, that you did that good deed just to be recognized, you might have inspired somebody to do a good deed that doesn't want to be recognized. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I give everybody what they're
I have a hard time with that. I'll be honest with you. I always think, the scripture that says those who exalt themselves will be humble, but those who humble themselves will be exalted. And I get that. I just definitely, I do this because of what I did before and because of who my God is. And that's, this is what we do. We let our light shine, man.
Father Stan from OLOA back in the day, God rest his soul, when I was attending OLOA, and I was actually a Eucharistic minister there while I was still attending Catholic Church, used to say, and there they are, the people who play the trumpet before the deeds.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's good to play the trumpet, because even if it inspires somebody to do good, a good deed was done. That's the way I look at it, whatever it takes, by all means necessary, let's get it done, you know what I mean? Yeah. Let's keep going. Nicole Ingham, good for you. John Silva. And then Lance brings up another point. There are a lot more functioning addicts out there than we realize.
Sure.
Guys that I used to work with. Gosh, I worked with you and you were doing it back then. You know what I mean? People need to understand that, not be so ignorant to this problem that affects, more than likely, someone you know.
Yeah.
Which we talked about. There are people out there that you talk to every day that you do not know are struggling with drugs.
Yeah.
And Kevin Rosario brought something up. And now that you deal with Vogue, and this just popped in my head, this was an awesome, awesome idea. And he did this out in the Cape, and I think that would be huge if we did this here. In high school, your senior, junior year, what's the most important thing at the end of the year is the prom, right? The district attorney's office out there, along with Kevin, did this. If you wanted to pick up your prom tickets, and they held it at a time where parents and their kids could go, your parent or guardian, as well as yourself, had to attend this conference type thing in the auditorium, where Kevin came on, the DA came on, and explained all the signs of opioid use and Kevin's story. Yeah. And Kevin will consume you because he's like that, and Kevin can sell you anything, he's that guy. And man, what a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
you hold the kids hostage for something they want, and you hold the parents hostage, because there are, what just popped in my head was functioning people. People are children too. Your child may be functioning right now, but may be dependent on drugs.
Sure.
So you could educate these parents by doing a program like this, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something you can work on with Reverend Lima over at Voc, you know, and maybe start it there and then work itself out into the public school system. Like,
we actually, again, I told you about the opioid task force, how we're working on some prevention stuff, and Mike Roach has got a program that he's pulled down that, you know, it's a reward system that he wants to start implementing, and I don't know much about it yet, so I don't want to speak too much to it, but, you know, we were just, Terry Beliveau, who's our youth director, and I were just at Voc the other day with Henry Bousquet and some of his students who want to, I was so inspired by these kids, you know, they're 15, 16-year-old kids in high school who want to start a group for kids who are children of addicts and kids who are struggling with addiction, or just want an anonymous place to go for some support and some education and to bring in speakers. And I thought, man, these kids are really, you know, getting it, you know, they want to make a difference with their peers. And so those things are happening, and I think that the more this stigma is lifted, like, listen, man, you know, it's going to impact you, like you said, on one way or another. So you can do nothing, you can ignore this, or you can do something to be part of this.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to see even the youth now starting to step up, you know.
that's a good thing, because we also touched upon this yesterday. It's in your genes to be an addict, or it's in your upbringing to be an addict. Environment or genetics.
Yeah, predisposed.
You know, you're being predisposed in your genetics. But what I don't want to get into that argument at all.
Sure.
The reason why I bring it up is because there aren't really many programs for the children affected by their parents being addicts.
Yeah.
And this may stop that cycle from continuing onto the offspring of addicts.
Sure. I mean,
You know?
I know like High Point does stuff, and they do stuff for youth 17 and under. They have the Castle program, things like that. And I know that, you know, again, you know, we talked about DARE, right? When we were growing up, there was DARE.
I don't even remember one thing from DARE.
I don't
and
either. I just remember
Trooper Bro, if you're out there watching, you know I'm a friend of yours, Diane, and I love you to death. You even put my car seats in for my kids. I didn't learn a thing from DARE. I'm going to tell you right now.
Well, you know, again, as this evolves, as the culture and the drug culture and addiction culture evolves, I think what we need to do is evolve with it. You know, you're not gonna beat it with the old mentalities.
No,
and
as a matter of fact, I used to wear my DARE shirt and smoke bones. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And thought it was cool when I was a kid. Like, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you are evolving, and you are, you know, and you're bringing one of the oldest.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
You know, the word of the Lord is the word of the Lord since the beginning of man.
Yeah, I always say,
and you're bringing the old school.
It's timeless, man. There's certain principles in there that are undeniable. You know, the golden rule. You know, I mean, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You know, everybody. Again, it's, you know, when I tell people I'm not the most religious guy, you know, I'm not. You know, pastor means servant, shepherd. It means, you know, minister is to serve people and to lead people. And the idea is that, you know, to be the greatest servant is to be the greatest leader, you know, and that was taught to us. And it wasn't about, you know, I not to get too biblical on you, but, you know, when you read the Gospels and you see what Jesus came and said, he pointed out the religious people, he called them out, and he said, it's not about how big your hat is, you know what I mean? I don't care about your image, I don't care about your big temples. He goes, you know, the most important things is to love God and to love others. You know? And, you know, the laws hang on all of that, you know, and so the idea is if you can't get that right, then keep your religion to yourself, because you're missing the whole point of humanity and what God created us to be.
Yeah, touched upon that earlier when I said, you know, just love and continue to love, and you said the same thing. And I actually shared with you yesterday, you know, once I did this whole, decided let's go forward with this Puerto Rico thing, we went into, at my church, 2 Corinthians 9 and 10, where we discussed giving and giving to others and planting those seeds, because you'll get more seeds back.
That's right.
I mean, and
reap what we sow, man.
And it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and you've touched many people, as evident by your growing stature in the community.
Yeah. Well.
And when you do the right thing, it seems that, and you help people, it seems like that's the recipe for success around here. And I noticed that now a lot through this show. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and I've learned a lot from people like you, Kevin, and others, that the more I give, the more fulfilling my heart is.
Yeah.
And the more I want to help. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's so contagious. It's like, you know.
It's what we were created to do, though.
And to love others in it.
Yeah.
And I hope to meet someone like you every single day in this area, because if everybody took the negativity out of their daily lives and just said, you know what, I'm going to do one positive thing for somebody today. or I'm gonna be kind to someone today. One of the main things I tell my son every day is, hey man, be kind.
Yeah, it's great religion right there.
And the world will be a better place, and it'll help others, and be compassionate for others. That's
Sure.
the main point. 'Cause that compassion saved you. Guys like Mike Turgeon had compassion for you. Brian had compassion for you.
Mhm.
Your mother did, because a lot of moms kind of just give up on their kids. And
Sure.
look what you're doing now. Their compassion built you to the man that you are right now. Through Christ. And
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about community, man. We got to build each other up. We got to support each other. We got to walk with each other at the worst times, not just the best times, and remember that, it's not about us, and, like you said, these platforms, I get uncomfortable, I squirm, it's not about me. Trust me, I know who I really am. And
I hate this.
I always think, like, man, if people really knew how I was, the struggles I have on a daily basis, I just want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem anymore. Again, the platform was given to me. I didn't earn it, and so I'm just going to do what I can with what I have in the now, and it could all be gone tomorrow, and that's fine too, man. But I just don't want to, I just want to be able to say I didn't waste that moment, So, yeah, be present, man. Be present.
Past the next 30 seconds of yours, Jamie, because we're way past our bedtime.
Yeah, we are. Gosh, you kidding me? I'm already.
And I still got poor Jay out there to go
Yeah.
talk to. He's been
Yeah.
waiting the whole time.
Right.
He was a good guest, and usually they
Yeah.
leave by now.
Yeah.
Right? Jay's sticking
Yeah.
around. I have a feeling he wants to talk to us about some stuff.
Yeah.
The camera's yours. The mic's yours. What do you want to say, Jamie?
Don't give up hope. It's easy to give up on people. It's easy to give up on yourself. When it gets tough. But the breakthroughs are on the other side of those challenges. And there are people like me, like Kevin Rosario's and the Corey Pinas and the Brian Dubies, and there's so many. I mean, I could go down a list. I guarantee you they've watched this broadcast because they know they've been there with me. And so, there's so many examples out there of hope and people who have endured, and they're the proof of, a community and the power of relationships and the power of God. And so, the resources are out there. There's hope, man. Don't give up hope. And this city was once the city that lit the world. Through whale oil and all that. And I think we can do that again. I think that's what we need to do. Is that, in the darkest times, that's when the light shines the brightest. And I think this is our opportunity to really rise up and to set the tone nationally. I don't see why we can't. Spark a fire is always started by a spark, a simple spark, and let New Bedford be that spark.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Jamie. Before I forget, someone that needs to get credit for something and that's always involved in the community, Christian Farland.
Yeah.
Hope you're enjoying Florida, brother. Christian Farland is trying to get Teen Challenge into New Bedford.
Yeah, he reached out the other day, and I love Christian, man. I think I've known Christian since he was a kid.
Mr. I Love New Bedford.
Yeah, he is a good dude, man, and he does a lot for this community, and a lot. He's another one who's an unsung hero. He definitely does a lot more than people even realize. And he did. He said something about wanting, he has a property that he wants to bring Teen Challenge to New Bedford because he sees the value.
He put it on his Facebook yesterday.
Yeah, he sees the value of the program. He sees the power of it, and he's seen it transform lives like mine. And I don't know, if it would be, obviously we can't just throw around the name Teen Challenge because they have their own brand and their own plan and vision, but. I think the reality of what he's saying is something like that would be of huge value to this city, and him wanting to bring something like that to this area is a great thing. Whether
There's not enough of that.
No, like a strong transition program, and there are some good houses out there. Don't get me wrong. I've been working with Armin over at Zero Tolerance and Billy Whelan, who has Flipside, and they guys at Harmony House. I mean, they're doing some good things in this community, but there's far and few between. We need more. We need we need the housing. We need the transition. Long-term treatment is where success is had, and I think Jay touched on it too. Is that 30 days is definitely not enough. Statistically, it's proven that the longer you stay in treatment, the greater your success rate is.
Absolutely.
So if we can elongate that treatment and give people a powerful, positive house to live in or a treatment program, then we're going to have more success.
We throw millions of dollars at other things that are absolute waste. There's no reason why we can't throw millions of dollars at loved ones.
Yeah, amen.
Because most of these people are loved ones. They
Amen.
have moms, they have brothers, they have sisters, just like I do.
Yeah, sure.
And no matter how you feel about them, be loyal to your family and love them. Continue to love them. Continue to support them. You are no longer doing anything for your bipolar.
No.
This is what my main point is, that the drugs affected you to the point where you were misdiagnosed.
Yeah, side effects. Yeah.
They're not, the people you're dealing with, people that are on drugs that are at that point where Jamie was. That's not the real them. This right here is the real Jamie Casey. And there's the real your brother, there's a real your sister that stole from you, beat you up, lied to you, let you down. But inside that person is the real brother, sister that you knew. Don't give up on them. Please don't.
That's right.
All right, guys, I got to pay some bills here. Jamie, thank you so much, brother. I'm going to continue to lean on you. I'm also going to make sure that when I do the group text to Kevin and Corey, hey, I need a bed, because I'm bothering them too much. I'm going to hit you up too, man.
Anytime. That's what we do, brother.
Guys, tonight's show is brought to you by Fast Phone Fix on 238 Union Street. Fast Phone Fix is good at fixing your iPhones, which everybody breaks, their Androids, which everybody breaks. And for the next month, if you mention New Bedford Guide, they are offering 25% off their services. So for a $100 screen, you get $25 off, guys. Make sure you go visit Fast Phone Fix, and that's on 238 Union Street. They actually do gift cards there, I believe, and to your brother that's walking around getting his finger sliced on his iPhone, you can give him that for Christmas to get his iPhone fixed. Also, Creative Auctions is doing their annual auction over at the New Bedford Inn and Suites on Hathaway Road, and that'll be on December 3rd at 1 p.m. The auction starts at 1 p.m. Thank you again to Attorney Jay McMahon. Good luck on your campaign, sir. Jamie Casey, thank you for your continued devotion to the recovery of others, along with your continued success with yours. And as a man of God myself and faithful man of God, I appreciate that you're pushing the good word out there. Gosh, you hit me with stuff yesterday, and it's like, man, I went to church myself yesterday when I met with you. You know, not only did I do a pre-interview, you told me a few things that I came home with and thought of real deeply. And we touched upon everything from children to recovery to marriage, and it all resonated with me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
And that's the meaning of church.
That's community, brother.
You know, people don't realize. People say you go to church. Yesterday was church, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, called to be the church, man.
Yes, sir. Guys, thank you so much. Sorry I went over, but with guests like Jamie and Jay, it's inevitable. Thank you so much for your continued viewership. Be kind to each other, New Bedford. Don't look down on people that are struggling. Reach down and help them up. Have a great week. Don't forget, guys, I'll be doing the toy drive. I'll be releasing all that information on Facebook, and also I'll be posting the link for United Families that Edwin's putting on. Let's help those families out in Puerto Rico. Let's help the families that are now in New Bedford enjoy New Bedford and welcome them warmly, and have them want to stay in our community and be positive people in our community, and reinforce the need that as a community we can all help each other. Probably the words didn't flow out correctly on that last sentence, but you get the point. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and continued support on the show. See you next week.